News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks. The Justice Department says there are now over 1 million more documents it's sifting through, potentially related to its case on Jeffrey Epstein. The FBI and Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office uncovered them, and the department says it's going to take a few more weeks to review and make the necessary redactions before it can release them. Bloomberg's D.C. breaking news editor Alexander Pearson weighed in on the latest batch.
We had the second batch of files. There were tens of thousands that were released as part of that batch. And most notably about them was the fact that President Trump was mentioned a lot more in the second batch than he was in the first batch that was released last week. Naturally, a lot of those mentions, were awkward for the president. There was one record that showed he'd actually taken flights on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet in the mid-90s. That's something that President Trump has previously denied ever having done. And there were some other documents that also, did not shed a good light on him.
That's Bloomberg's Alexander Pearson in Washington. Critics have blasted the administration for being too slow to release the Epstein files and wrongly blacking out the names of government officials and potential co-conspirators referenced in internal emails. The man accused of shooting 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. last month has just been charged with 5 additional federal felonies. The 29-year-old Afghan national is now facing charges of first-degree premeditated murder while armed, as well as assault and firearms charges. That's on top of the murder charges he faces for killing a 20-year-old Guard member. The other soldier was critically injured and, as of earlier this month, could finally breathe on his own. His medical team says he's making extraordinary progress. Kiev's claiming responsibility for an explosion in Moscow today that's killed at least 3 people, including 2 police officers. The attack comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's willing to withdraw troops from the country's eastern industrial heartland as part of a plan to end Russia's war. But that's only if Moscow pulls back and the area becomes a demilitarized zone monitored by international forces. The proposal marks the clearest indication yet of compromises from Ukraine for regional control, which remains a major sticking point in peace negotiations. Zelensky has said a similar agreement could be possible for the area around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, but any peace plan would need to be put up for a vote. A federal judge just gave the Trump administration the green light to move ahead with a $100,000 fee on new H-1B visa applications. It's considered a setback for tech companies especially, which rely on hiring skilled foreign workers. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce sued to block the proposal and says it's now considering further legal options. The Supreme Court has ruled against President Trump's bid to deploy the National Guard in Chicago. Bloomberg's Laura Davidson has that story from Washington.
This is really the latest in a string of losses when it has come to these National Guard deployments. We've seen, troop deployments to Portland. Memphis also face legal setbacks from judges ruling those as unlawful. The deployment in Washington, D.C., of course, continues. A judge said that deployment is probably illegal, but that the troops are allowed to remain on the streets for now. But this just, sort of is at least one issue where the Supreme Court is pushing back hard on Trump. And there seems to be sort of a broad consensus across the legal landscape that this may be an issue that is a step too far in terms of Trump's power.
Bloomberg's Laura Davidson reporting. Meantime, the FBI, ICE, and Arundel County Police Department in Maryland are all investigating a shooting involving an ICE officer today. Spokesperson Justin Mulcahy.
ICE agents were conducting a detail. They approached a white van. That van attempted to run agents over. Then ICE agents fired at that vehicle.
2 people were injured, including one person in that van who was hit by gunfire. They're in stable condition at a local hospital. No police officers were involved here. We check the markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg, and it was a short day on Wall Street ahead of Christmas. The Dow added 289 points, about 0.2%. The Nasdaq was up 0.2%, up 51 points. The S&P also added 22 points, hanging on to its record high, up about 1/3 of a percentage point. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.1%, the 2-year yields at 3.5%. Now, the markets won't be back for a full trading session till Friday, but keep in mind some European markets will be closed that day for Boxing Day. A serious weather threat in California is now making Christmas Eve travel a little dicey. The state's been getting hit with heavy rain, mostly in the north over the last few days, and now Southern Californians are being urged to stay off the road. LA County Sheriff Robert Luna.
The last thing we want to do is ruin anybody's Christmas plans, but we have an obligation as a county family to wave the flag and say there's a threat, a real threat out there.
Meanwhile, a post-Christmas storm could bring even more wintry weather across the Midwest and East Coast.
Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus.
Snow's not stopping Santa Claus from making his deliveries around the world. Dozens of volunteers are now clocked in at NORAD, tracking him as he treks through Africa. NORAD's John Ingle says they've been following the big guy for 70 years now.
Today we use our ground-based radars, the North Warning System that stretches from the west coast of Alaska all the way to the east coast of Canada, as well as our satellites that are about 22,000 miles above the Earth that use infrared sensors to track things like missile launches. And this time of the season, to track Rudolph's nose.
That's NORAD's John Ingle. Your kids can call a hotline or track Santa online at noradsanta.org. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks, and this is Bloomberg.